Fellas, we are now 70 miles in, and this fuel gauge has not budged an inch. It still says we're full. We're almost done our fuel economy loop. Jesus, this thing is efficient. Welcome back, I'm Alex, and we're back with this 3-liter Duramax. Today we're testing fuel economy, which should be right in the middle of this engine's wheelhouse. The official EPA rating for this engine is 23 miles per gallon in the city, 27 on the highway, for a combined 24 miles per gallon, which is an impressive number for a full-sized 5,000-pound pickup truck. And we will be putting that to the test on my 85-mile towing loop. It consists of 3 sections: city, country, and highway, ideally giving us a good combined fuel economy score. So that's the plan today. I'll meet you guys down at the gas station. Time to fill her up. Get her going. Just kidding, guys. Green goes to the green. Well, we're locked and loaded with diesel, not gasoline. Let's hit the road. First up is our city section. I try and keep the truck around 35 miles an hour, traffic depending, obviously. And the first thing that I like about this diesel engine is that there's no real fuel economy gimmicks. And what I mean by that is cylinder deactivation technology. Both of GM's V8s use active fuel management, which is the cylinder deactivation technology, as well as the 2.7-liter Duramax has its own cylinder deactivation technology, all to try and help improve fuel economy where this engine just doesn't need it. Now, in fairness, that cylinder deactivation technology does seem to be doing something, because the current leader on my fuel economy loop is the 5.3-liter V8 with active fuel management. But if you haven't been living under a rock, you know that there are some pretty significant lifter problems with both of those V8 engines, most likely due to that cylinder deactivation technology. Specifically speaking, in terms of city advantages this engine has, well, it's a little bit of a torque monster, with 94% of its peak torque being available at only 1,500 RPM. So with having such low-end torque, in theory, when we're stopping and starting like what you do in the city, the engine shouldn't have to rev as high to get the truck rolling, which should save some fuel economy. And as we come to a full stop here, this engine also has start-stop technology, but as the camera's rolling, obviously it doesn't do it for me, but that should save a little bit of fuel economy in the city as well. As we leave the city, we're currently sitting at 29.7 miles per gallon, which is better than any other engine we've tested at this point. Now, we do have to remember this is just a computed value. At the end of our test, we will do some true math and get the real calculated value. Like we mentioned, this engine does not have cylinder deactivation, so how can it be so darn efficient? And it comes down to a couple simple things. Firstly, diesel has more energy per volume than gasoline does, meaning that you technically need less of it to get the same energy output. Diesel fuel contains roughly 15% more energy than gasoline. It's a denser fluid, which means it can have more fuel molecules per volume, meaning that there's more energy potential. Another reason why diesel engines are more efficient comes down to thermal efficiency. Thermal efficiency is how well an engine transfers its fuel energy into mechanical energy versus heat energy. So a diesel engine transfers its fuel energy very well into mechanical energy, rotating the crankshaft, then rotating the wheels, pushing the vehicle forward, where a gasoline engine puts more of its fuel energy into heat, not actually putting that energy into mechanical energy to push the vehicle forward. So a diesel engine has a higher thermal efficiency, meaning that it needs less fuel to do the same work, if that makes sense. So for those two reasons, that's why we normally see a diesel engine anywhere from 20 to 30% more efficient than a gasoline engine. Modern diesel engines do have their downsides when it comes to fuel economy, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Currently, we are on our country section. We put the truck in cruise control, 56 miles an hour or 90 kilometers an hour, and we just let the truck do its thing and see how efficient we can be. One benefit that I can see with this engine right away is just, again, the fact that it's so torquey and gets that torque very low in the RPM band is we're ideally not gonna have to downshift that much in order to go over these little hills, keeping the RPMs nice and low. Currently we're well below 2,000 RPM, and that should once again help us to save fuel. Whereas other engines in the segment that have just power bands higher up into the RPM range, the 5-liter Coyote comes into mind, that engine is most likely gonna have to rev quite a bit more, which should translate into more fuel usage. And currently we're sitting at 31.1 miles per gallon, which is, it is pretty incredible. One thing I guess I should mention is this truck has 373 gears in it, the more aggressive gearing. In theory, if you get this Duramax with the 323 gears, it should be even more fuel efficient than this. And I do believe I'm gonna get one later this year, and we'll redo this fuel economy test and see if we can get even better results. We're coming to the end of our country section. We're currently averaging 30.3 miles per gallon, so we dropped just a little bit there. It did get a little bit hilly, so understandable. And we're still well above every other engine in the segment in terms of their country section. Next up, we're gonna jump on the highway. I did wanna point something out. We've driven 51 miles. Our fuel gauge, this little line here, it has not budged. It still says completely full. This thing is sipping on fuel, let me tell you. On the highway, we got our cruise control set to 70 miles an hour. And typically on this stretch of the highway, we see these smaller displacement turbocharged engines sort of fall off a little bit in terms of fuel economy because, well, we are going over some hilly terrain. We're at the tip of the Appalachian Mountains. As you guys can see ahead of us, we are going over a little ridge here. And at these speeds, going over hills, it seems like the smaller displacement engines really need to force boost into the engine, and it takes a pretty big hit on the fuel economy. But with this 3-liter diesel, I feel like we might not see that big of a drop off just because this engine is just so torquey down low that we may not need that much boost, but we'll keep an eye on it. So diesel engines are without a doubt more efficient than gasoline engines, but modern diesel engines like this engine have a little bit of a dark side, and it is emissions, baby. As you can see right here with this engine, we have a NOx sensor, we got a temp sensor. That's your DOC canister sitting right there out in the open. And as I've touched on many times, a full set of emissions on a modern diesel engine does reduce reliability as well as the longevity of the engine, and it also impacts fuel economy pretty heavily. So when an engine has to breathe or push out exhaust gases through your DOC, your diesel particulate filter, as well as your SCR, it can make things not as efficient. An internal combustion engine is sort of just like an air pump. The more air you can shove in and the more air you can shove out, the more efficient it's gonna be and the more power you're gonna make. The big one for me is the regen. So a regen is when the diesel particulate filter gets too full of soot and we need to burn that soot off. So typically, diesel fuel is sprayed directly into the exhaust to get that DPF nice and hot and burn that soot off. As you can probably imagine, when we're using extra diesel fuel to burn off that soot, not gonna be that efficient. And depending on how frequently your truck is regenning, it can certainly heavily impact your efficiency or your fuel economy. Fellas, we are now 70 miles in and this fuel gauge has not budged an inch. It still says we're full. We're almost done our fuel economy loop. Jesus, this thing is efficient. Well, we're just about to pull off the highway here. We're sitting at 29.2 miles per gallon. So we did lose maybe 1 mile per gallon on this highway section, but still we are sitting well above the rest of the pack. We made it to the gas station. Our final fuel economy according to the truck, 29.3 miles per gallon. I've never seen this. Our fuel economy gauge literally did not budge. It still reads full. That's pretty wild, but let's fill her up. Just kidding, boys, not this time. All right, let's slip her in. I'm expecting big things. I really am. I think this thing's gonna be extremely efficient, probably flatline the rest of the segment. All right, there's our first pull. We'll wait 30 seconds. Currently at 10 liters. Wow. All right, 3, 2, 1. Down we go. There's our final 11.636. What you've all been waiting for, the total calculated fuel economy. This engine ran 26.9 miles per gallon, so it didn't crush the rest of the segment as much as I thought it would, but still a very impressive result, and now the most fuel efficient engine on our 1500 towing loop. And we do have to remember this truck has 373 gears in the back, so when I do get this engine later on this year with 323s, I suspect that engine will climb up even further, so just keep that in mind. If you guys did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up, and if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe. We'd love to have you on board. But enough of me. We'll see you in the next freaking video.